powerful and beautiful, I might add, panelists from all over Africa and even Australia today. So I'm just going to give it another 2 minutes before we start, and I'll let you do some introductions on the chat. And please let us know. I mean, I'm in Cape Town. The weather today, unfortunately, is not amazing. It's looking a little bit grim outside, but I think we need the rain, so we're quite happy for that. And we just welcome you and look forward to having you participate today. I think we're expecting in excess of 400 attendees. So welcome everybody, and I'm sure we'll probably have more. And for those who are here and haven't been able to make it, or aren't able to make the full session, we will have this content on demand after the event. We have a Topco Bulletin newsletter. So if you go to our website, www.topco.co.za, you can sign up to the bulletin and you will have access to the article and the on-demand content and all the resources that are going to be shared today by the panelists and by ourselves. You'll be able to access. And I'm going to share some of the social media links and social media hashtags with you as I just go through the introductory presentation. So we've got about 45 seconds to go before we start, and I will just do a brief introduction on what we're doing here and our purpose. And while I'm doing that, I really encourage you to do the same about where you are, what your purpose is, in business, and like I said before, what your challenges are. We already have some really nice chats coming through from Melbourne, South Africa, fantastic. Some people already from Johannesburg, Durban. So welcome everybody. Really nice to hear you saying good morning. Then Cape Town, there we go. So keep the chats coming, and let's get the conversation going. Right, so it is 11 o'clock on the dot. I'm going to officially kick off and welcome everybody to the Top Woman Standard Bank Masterclass series. This is number 7 in our series, and today we are really tackling a very, very prominent subject matter that I suppose has been spoken about for quite a while, and that's how you can power ahead and become a tech leader. And we're discussing all sorts of things about culture, talent, mentorship. I'll go into detail of that later with our fantastic guests. So just from our side, I mentioned our purpose. Our purpose at Standard Bank Top Woman is really to inspire the world to do good business. And our mission in doing that is we want to create a trusted network of 10,000 women-owned and gender-empowered companies. So we want to recognize companies that are doing good business and inspire more to do good business. And we've set ourselves a challenge of linking the top 1,000 corporates to 10,000 women-owned businesses in 2021. So some of the ways in which you can get involved with Top Women is through our awards and conferencing. We have a membership platform. We also certify women-owned businesses, so they get an accreditation after doing the research with us, and they get to use badging and a whole lot of marketing collateral that really sets them apart from just the average sort of businesses, and it gives them a competitive edge. And then the awards that we're doing, the nominations are open. I've asked my nominations manager to introduce herself in the chat and let you all know how you can get involved, or if you want to nominate somebody, or if you want to enter as your company. It has really become a sort of massive highlight on the South African, or African now, calendar, because we have entrants from all over the continent. Today, a couple of things we'll learn, and I believe some of those you would have read this before, but we're really going to talk about why 50% of women who, before they reach their maturity in the technology sector, prematurely leave. It's a big issue, and we're going to unpack what those reasons are and what we can learn from some of our panelists on how they've overcome those challenges. We also want to inspire you to how we can accelerate more women in tech. And for those leaders who are running either tech companies or in tech, how you can diversify your tech teams, I think is going to be really important in the coming years. Again, as one of the major challenges is obviously sort of working in a male-dominated sector, so we'll touch on that. And then I think a big focus of today is going to be looking around what are the opportunities for women in tech, what are the opportunities for women in Africa, and in general worldwide, because this problem is not just based in Africa. I've got plenty of research that demonstrates that the issue is all around the world, from Britain to India, Australia, the US, and India. So that is something that we're really going to hone in on, I think, as a topic. And then how to thrive and in a world of change through technology. And the last one really is just a quick snapshot of, we've gone through the pandemic, or we're going through the pandemic, and Melbourne has just gone into lockdown. We will discuss that in a minute. But how we have really strived in terms of adopting digital during the pandemic, and how can we accelerate gender equality at the same time as our digital acceleration. So I'm really excited and looking forward to discussing that with our panelists. We've got Mushfiqa Samudin, the business director from Aspire Solutions. She's also a previous Top Woman in Tech award winner from Top Woman Awards 2020. We've got Janita Suknanan. Thank you, Janita, for helping me out on the pronunciation. I think I mastered that one. She's head of legal. She's head of legal at Netstar. Netstar is also one of our partners coming into the conference in October. And I think this is a good opportunity to unpack some potential content that we're going to be discussing, and a good door opener to what the conversations we'll be having at the conference in October. And then we've got, all the way from Australia, and I think it's probably dark there, Sarah Adam Gage, from Managing Director of Australia and New Zealand and Wipro, and Valencia Risaba, Chief Corporate Affairs Officers, I'm getting tongue twisted, from Liquid Intelligent Technologies. Both Wipro, Liquid Intelligent Technologies, and Netstar are all going to be partnering with us at the conference. So if you have feedback on the things that you want to be talking to them about at the conference, and engage in topics and conversations, please, by all means, now is your opportunity to do so. This is just, we've started a membership club with Top Women. It's a really great platform for us to get involved with one another, to advance your career. There's a lot of content that we share. You get access to masterclasses like this, to podcasts that we do. A recent one that we've done is with Vera Shongwe from the United Nations, which was very, very interesting, and pretty much a lead into why we actually held this masterclass today. And there's the social platforms for you: Standard Bank Top Woman, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. You're welcome to spread the word, share your comments and any insights you have. We'd love to hear from you, and love to have your support. So I'm now going to sort of hand over to our panelists, just to give a very brief introduction on themselves. I think I just want to I think it's nice for us to get to know everybody. So I'm going to start with Sarah. Sarah, thank you, first of all, for coming through all the way from Australia, or being with us today. It's very, very honored to have you with us. And the fact that I think you've had nearly 2 decades of experience in this sector. So I'm sure there's a lot we're going to learn from you today.
Yeah, no, thanks, Carla. It's great to be here, and 2 decades, but a little bit longer than that at work. So I haven't had all my career in tech, but from time to time get referred to as seasoned and a veteran, which is not my preferred descriptors, I must say. So I've also recently joined Wipro here in Australia after spending some time prior in other businesses, IBM and so forth. And yeah, you know, that's a great journey for me. They've got great focus on women in our business, and good metrics globally, but plenty that we can do together, and plenty we're going to do here in the Australian New Zealand business. So, you know, my job is really to help the people in the business here in Wipro and hopefully thrive, you know, as we go through and reshape our business. So really looking forward to the discussion tonight.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Valencia, can I hand over to you? You're on mute.
Carla, thanks for the warm introduction as well. Morning, everyone. I am delighted to be taking part in this masterclass this morning. Yes, I'm Valencia Risaba. I work for Liquid Telecom. I have not always been in technology as well. I'm a lawyer by profession. I've worked through various contexts and that have manifested in me being in Liquid Telecom at the moment. Corporate affairs, which is the area that I look after, is a critical area of the business at this point because one big aspect of it is the regulatory affairs. So ensuring that we can do what we set out to do as Liquid, what we license, and we in good stead to provide the services that we provide. By the name of the company, I think the timing is impeccable that we're doing this now when the company has just rebranded from Liquid Telecom to Liquid Intelligent Technology. Because what that is, the reason behind, and I'll give a brief history around that, we've rebranded and refocused our business model away from pure telecom services to providing intelligent digital solutions, so a wide range of solutions. And I think it's fair to say at this point, with COVID and everything, we'll get to that during the conversation, the timing couldn't have been better because digitization is the way the world functions, is the way economies are thriving at the moment. So that was the reason behind the change. I'm looking forward to giving my insights in terms of the business discussions that we're going to be having today, personal insights as well. And I'm hoping I will get to someone. I'm available for interactions after the session as well, and engagements just to take the discussions forward. But Carla, thanks for inviting me, and I'm happy to be engaging with everyone this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Valencia. Thank you so much. And I think everybody's looking forward to it. And you're one of two panelists in the legal trade. So I'm going to hand over to Janita from Netstar. Janita, welcome. And please just tell us a little bit about yourself. You're mute, I think.
Hi, everyone. Sorry about that. Thanks, Carla, for the introduction. A very good morning to all of you, to the panel, as well as the phenomenal women and men who are attending. Thank you so much to Topco and to Netstar for this wonderful opportunity. It's really a privilege to be here. It's very humbling. And, I've worked for Netstar for the past 14 years. I'm presently the head of legal, and I look after legal risk and compliance. And, I'm really looking forward to an insightful discussion with all of you in sharing my own thoughts, as well as learning from this distinguished panel. I think my purpose is to learn and grow in whatever I do, and I look forward to doing that today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing, Janita. Mushfiqa, let's hand it to you, one of our award winners from last year. So looking forward to having you here today.
Yes, Carla, thank you so much. I mean, I think I'm I'm totally overwhelmed. Wipro, Netstar, Liquid Telecoms is known before. I know you've rebranded now into Intelligence, but being from Aspire Solutions, seen as a QSE, and most importantly, for all those that are attending within the entrepreneurial space. So an introduction to myself is I'm a woman who invested 20 years into myself by means of learnings, pitfalls, celebrations, and perseverance. And most importantly, a woman who accepted my worth and my value to the industry and society. So now in the position as the business director at Aspire, I'm really truly humbled and honored to engage on a platform, share my story, and inspire at least one. The beauty and the mix or the balance that I can say between the panelists today is understanding what transpires within the corporate platforms, because I do come from that background as well. And yeah, so sharing my story, and most importantly for me, interaction. So whoever and everyone who is attending today, please, your questions that you have, put them up on there. I'm like Valencia, I'm also available. If you are entering the entrepreneurial space, more so understanding, how to cross over into technology, because both, again, Sarah and Valencia, if you look at the background of where you start and where you end up, it kind of puts us in the position of where society is trying to grow their own, and more so the current pandemic that, we all facing and the challenges. So thank you so much for having me on this platform, and I look forward to interacting.
Thank you, Mashfika, and welcome everybody. Thank you very much. Very nice introductions. So I'm going to kick off with just a little bit of background in terms of why we hosted this event. At the beginning of this month, we hosted an event called Africa Tech Week, and there was a profound, overarching sentiment that one of the biggest challenges for accelerating Africa's tech ecosystem was the lack of gender equality being achieved. And that in a discussion, like I mentioned with Vera Shongwe that we had from the United Nations, that if we want to digitalize Africa and also in the rest of the world, one of the biggest things we need to tackle is the inequality of women and representation in the tech sector. This session specifically is more around identifying why women are leaving the tech sector early. We have identified in the past why they're not entering at all, and I think a lot of countries are pushing STEM programs for youth. But what I have read from a lot of the research that I've done is there is still a problem maintaining women in the tech sector once they start to become in leadership positions. So at the event, we had Zara Beatty from the Jack Ma Foundation. And one of the things that she said is predicted that Africa will create 54 million jobs by 2022. That's less than a year away. And it's really important that we're not just creating jobs, but we're sustaining them, I guess, where that's going. So there's a whole lot of things that need to happen in that regard. I'm going to start with you, Sarah, because in Australia, there is an article that I came across that says 27% of girls in Australia are likely to undertake science, technology, engineering, and mathematics at school, the lowest of all the Pacific countries. And I just want to bring in with that comment why you think that is. Not only that, but from your personal challenges that you've had or your journey, what have you seen or what have you identified as the main challenges for sustaining a profession in the tech sector for a woman?
Yeah, and that's an interesting stat to throw out there. I saw a similar one, and I must admit what I also saw was that there has been a big shift more recently in the last 5 or 6 years around how government has changed policy and put investment in funding different areas to try and encourage more STEM attendance, right from the primary years through to secondary school and to uni. And there's actually, I did some reading on it, a STEM equity monitor now, which is actually tracking this and, publishing how the progress is based on the various programs that are around. So there are some improvements, but nevertheless, that feeder system for us, it is a big issue. I'm a person that didn't start in tech. I'm a chartered accountant, so we can all share our, how we originally started. And I was actually at PwC Consulting, and when PwC Consulting was acquired by IBM. So I sort of fell into it and fell into tech. I really didn't know too much about it, but here I am, as you said, a couple of decades later, and managing to survive. I think for me, and it's, I've just started here at Wipro, but it would probably be the same for all of us, is we all want to see people that are kind of like us, whether that's our ethnicity, whether that's our sort of skill set, maybe, some shared interests and what we like outside of work, but very much also what we're actually doing, at work. So, for me, I want to see women who are peers or role models. And this actually, I think, is one of the things that I think about personally, is that we all have opportunities to go and do other things. I want to, as a more senior woman in my industry, I think I've got a positive obligation to stay in industry, in an executive role, not necessarily go off and do board roles and, so on and so forth. You don't have as much impact. So I think it's really important. We've all personally got a role to play, but I also think we, want to see women who are in our peer group or that we look up to. So role models. So I've been in Wipro 7 weeks. I'm already connecting to people globally in Wipro, men and women, but I'm making sure that there are women there because, it's that sort of like-minded stuff. I think the other big thing is that, if we take a career break for some reason, normally caring responsibilities, there is a fear. So you talked about, women in their mid-level of their careers before they really, sort of perhaps get to their most senior roles. And so if you take, I don't know, whatever it might be for you, parental leave, 6 months, could be 3, a year. There is a concern that women have, probably unnecessary, but the tech industry changes so much. How do you keep current during that time? Are you going to lose your skills? Will you still be relevant? So I think people are thinking about, well, can I come back into an industry that's really shifted on? Is it really open-minded to flexible work practices? Well, to be frank, COVID has really helped with that in recent times. So I think that there is a lot in our minds that are barriers. Are the people around us like us? Can we see some people that make it feel normal? What's it like when we step out of the workplace and, come back in? Is that hard to do? So they're just a couple of thoughts I would throw out from what I can see, in the Australian market.
Yeah, interesting. The fear of losing skills is definitely, I'm sure, a big issue, especially when you're changing so rapidly and tech is being adopted at a phenomenal pace. Valencia, you also have a background not necessarily related to tech, but you happen to be there now. But again, somewhat a male-dominated sector either way. So what are you finding, or have you found sort of those biggest barriers to be that we could potentially learn from or understand, right, that's going to be a challenge? Here's and kind of what can we start to do about solving it?
Okay, thanks, Carla. From my point of view, I think, and I've read up on some statistics, in the tech industry, the average percentage of women versus men is around 38% currently, and that's not accurate, but it's a rough estimate. And the numbers shrink as you go up the ladder. So, for example, the top 6 telcos in South Africa, none of the CEOs are women. You do have some executives that are few and far in between. So I think, to be fair, things are starting to change. For example, I'm a good example. I've recently been promoted, But I think the most important thing that I've seen, and that may be a hurdle, is what Sarah alluded to by saying we look for people like us in a workplace, and there's very few. I didn't study technology as well. I started off in law from a background where, for example, me being able to go to university was because my dad worked at Wits University. And at that time, there was a remission in fees for kids of staff that worked for the university. And I had gotten good marks. I'd worked myself. I've done my bit in that regard. I got in. And ever since, I would say in the corporate world, it's been a struggle to say you work your way through and you work hard. As a woman, you're expected to actually put in 3-4 times more effort than your male counterpart. There's almost an instant reaction to women from as you're coming down, but it grows as you're going up, higher up the ladder, in the sense that you can actually sense people questioning your ability. So there is, unlike with a man, where people are accustomed to naturally submitting to a male boss or to a male senior person. When you're a woman, you have to almost do some convincing. And it's not only from your male counterparts, I think also from females as well, we do that to each other. It's easier to submit to a male than, and it's a cultural thing. And I think you do get to a point where having to transcend those kinds of barriers while working very hard to actually convince people, you get to a point where you get sabotaged by the system. The system kind of draws you down and kind of almost drives you towards the exit. But I think the solution is work hard. We need to be seen to be credible. So know what you're doing, know about the business that you're in, because that also sort of emphasizes the fact that you gain credibility. So I've found the fact that you don't get people like us, and when you do get people that are like yourself, you don't necessarily automatically get the support that you were looking to get. There are also barriers. Also, I think Sarah has also alluded to the fact that you're accountable to more than just your work. You're accountable to your family, you're accountable to your kids. I listened to a talk show on radio recently, and this lady was saying the should attitude, like women should love your kids, women should take care of your husbands, you should be a good wife. Guess what? You should be a good employee, you should be a good executive. And just trying to manage all those responsibilities and roles gets to a point where you're juggling to a point where you sort of exit the system, or you stagnate at a point and not be able to go forward. And I think it's a struggle that us as women should take on and be supportive of each other. And it's not something that's, it's not winnable. It's something that we can transcend. But those are the realities that women face, not only in tech, I think in all industries generally, but in technology, because the people that are like you are more minimal than you would find, for example, in other careers. So
yeah.
that's my take on that. Thanks.
Yeah, I agree. Mashfika, you very much in more so the entrepreneurial space, and I suppose a lot of the focus is on developing entrepreneurs, and not necessarily at the moment in terms of the African continent. What are your, is the space as an entrepreneur facing the same battles that you would in the corporate ladder type scenario?
I think first off, what's important to say is that everything that Sarah and Valencia said, I resonate with completely. So for the attendees and everyone on the webinar at the moment, the reality is I come from that corporate struggle. So on insight to that, speaking to my colleagues before I actually entered this journey of, growing my own from an entrepreneurial space, the common thread is the fact that women, as you said, Valencia, we're able to juggle, which aids the ability to multitask, right? So we're able to do a lot more and show a lot more. The biggest statement that I could see on a common thread was the fact that they liked what they were doing, but they were not happy with the environment. So if I were to bring it back to myself, I mean, I worked for amazing companies. It's definitely part of the foundation on extending my credibility. But it was actually so difficult to climb that ladder within certain spaces, and I stepped out. So I took that credibility. I made sure that I was that the competence and what I was actually going to put out there was worth it. Again, it becomes that element of then knowing your worth. So whether you are whether you are in corporate or an entrepreneur, working towards your own company, because even that, working towards something that's your own is never done alone. So at the moment, I mean, I have my business partner, and what I need to focus on all the time is collaboration. And collaborating is more with males and with females who are either entrepreneurs or corporates as clients, or, which in all elements of collaboration and trying to make change and grow. I sit in that space where I've taken that jump, where I've said to myself, it is enough. And the only way I could do this is by assessing my own worth. So if you look at the African continent, one of the companies that I worked for solidly within the SAM market, so South Africa and the various end markets, Eastern Europe, Africa and Middle East, taking into account what's happening around, what's happening within the education system. There is another mindset that if you're teaching women to code, they are naturally going to go into the space of technology. So like Sarah and Valencia as well, I can say that my background was finance, legal, and industrial psychology. It was elements that I was trying to understand to see where my fit was. But as women, if we can accept that our fit is not defined by a shape or an environment or the people around us, but our work and perseverance and how we push through, that becomes your tool. It becomes your weapon of success. I mean, complete admiration, Valencia, on where how you've actually you've utilized what you could to gain the experience with the education and everything else, and being in a senior position. Those are, like Sarah again said, find role models in industry, and it can be across industry, because that is the value that technology provides. The situation that we are currently in, sitting in this webinar, where we are able to share our stories, we need to expand. We have, you've done the Africa Tech Week. There's collaboration and people who are able to engage. We need to keep that going, but most importantly, celebrating one another and pushing forward, where if it is you that is questioning yourself, it is then our responsibility to get out there, collaborate, and make sure that you highlight the worth of the next person. So I know that's a lot, and I'm possibly always going to come with the real factors of how, I've crossed over and what my journey's been. But the statement, liking what they are doing, but not happy with the environment, makes it a people problem. It gives us the responsibility to utilize social platforms and encourage and empower all the programs that are available within STEM and in STEAM for people to actually start educating themselves and becoming more aware of what's available, not just within our space, but in the African market and globally, as these platforms now exist.
Mashvika, thank you. Thank you for that. And I'd love it if you, as panelists or anybody in the audience, if you're aware of things that Mashvika is talking about, programs or accelerators or any sort of opportunities, please share them. we would love to share them on after the masterclass with some other people, with people who are going to subscribe to the newsletter, etc. So, Janita, tell us about your experience. I mean, everybody's been talking about, or Mushfiqa's mentioned that it's not the tech job, it's the environment. I must be honest, Mushfiqa, I thought the same, and I have read some. I read something which was, do women really want to be in tech, and why? Can we admit that maybe, just maybe, most women would rather not be a tech geek, and that the technology industry isn't so special or attractive after all? So, I mean, I don't know how true or not that is. I'm not in the tech sector. I can see Valencia putting her arms up. But I thought it's something we could play with, the idea of maybe that is one of the issues. I don't know. I'm in media, and we've got different. I've got totally different views. So Janita, I'd love to hear. Have you had some personal challenges with regards to how you've achieved your path in your profession in tech and as a woman?
So thanks, Carla, and I really have to allude to what my fellow panelists have said. So I've been with Netstar for the past 14 years, and when I started there, I also had not had the commercial legal experience that was required when I started off at the job. I was busy doing my master's. I was the only person in the department. And very soon after that, I was appointed, and I was fortunate to have been given that opportunity. I was appointed to the then EXCO. So I found myself as the only female, the only person of color, and I was the newbie. So, it was certainly daunting. It was overwhelming, but it was also an opportunity for me. And, I believe that we never ever take things for granted. So, I had no choice, and it's just the person that I am as well, to just make the best, of that opportunity. I had to have faith in myself. It was something that I was really passionate about, and I really just persevered. I worked really hard, and, I had to win the respect of the rest of my colleagues, being the only female, being the youngest person, being the newbie. It really required hard work, dedication, and that's that's really the only way that you also win the respect of your colleagues. There's definitely challenges, I believe, in any environment, but for me, it's also how we deal with those challenges. And just to talk a little bit about the stats that you mentioned, and as you said, Carla, it's not just the South African problem. It's something that's happening in other countries as well. And I personally was not aware that stat was as high as 50%. Because not only is it staggering and astounding, it really is disheartening as well. And according to a Forbes article I was reading earlier in the week, there was a study conducted by Accenture and a movement called Girls Who Code, which I think originated in India, as to why women abandon their technology careers. And, there were a few reasons identified, but they're really not complex reasons. It was reasons as simple as work-life balance, lack of opportunity, management support. I understand that the solution might not be as simple, but we really don't need to look so deeply into it. So I think it's so important for us as leaders and organizations to be supportive of women who are starting out, to ensure that they get the necessary support, the mentorship along the way, also ensure that there's opportunities for them to develop the required skills. At Netstar, for example, we have employee wellness and support programs, which support all staff and, address a number of issues where people can turn to even on an anonymous basis. So, that's really great. But I'm also proud to say that we've just started a women's network, and that certainly, is something, although it's relatively new, I believe that it's really something that can make a difference. you know, in solving these issues that women encounter in the workplace. Carla, you're on mute.
I know. I was trying to get back to my page. This is a common occurrence as we're talking tech. Thank you, Janita. Thank you so much for that. So for those of you who are in the audience, we have a couple of polls that we want to put out. We'd love to hear your feedback. I think we will be sharing that feedback with business leaders, with our community, and it will help us identify how to tackle things and what your challenges are in the future. So, and I'd love to sort of discuss some of those outcomes or the results as we go further into the masterclass. So speaking of sort of what I want to get to is I suppose we'll be here for hours if we identified all the problems and tried to tackle all the solutions. But really just sort of from each of you, what is one thing that we should or need to start with, one thing that we should tackle in the tech sector, in the working environment, whether it's from youth to leadership environments, that you feel would be really important and helpful that in terms of implementing, that you've learned from within business to enhance or maintain that our women in tech sector leaders stay there, that we keep them there. Sarah, let me just go in order of the way I went to first. So I'll start with you.
Yeah. I mean, I could say 5, but you said 1. I'll try.
You go with 2.
But this is, thank you. But this one is actually, I have a personal experience around this one. Is when I joined Avanade a few years ago, quite a few years ago now, I was, when we were doing the remuneration review, there was a pay equity gap, and we went about it and had a lot of support, and we fixed that, you know, and so that was just tremendous. And in Australia, there's this thing called Workplace Gender Equality Agency, WGEA, and any organisation over 250 employees has to, it's mandatory, has to submit a whole lot of information around their organisation on women, which level, how many managers, what the remuneration is, what are your policies, everything. It's very, very detailed. And it's actually worth going and having a look at, because it's got a lot of great background reading, a lot of data. It's a really data-driven change organisation, in my view. It's been around for 25 years. WGEA, I'll put it in the chat after. And so we fixed that at Avanade. We went through, we fixed the differences. And then a year later, when we were submitting this WGEA report that we had to do, my HR person was saying, you know, we're ready to go. Can you have a look through this? And I said, well, I actually don't think the data's right, because it shows we've got a pay gap again. And so, you know, I made their ears bleed and their eyes bleed by making them go and analyze it all again. And they came back and said, look, no, it is right. And I said, well, how could that be? We fixed it. 12 months ago, we fixed that. And what had happened was, during the course of the year, let's call it unconscious bias, whatever you want to call it, is through recruiting, that on balance, men in the same levels were being paid more when they were joining. And it was bringing back in the pay equity gap that we had removed a year ago. And so what that really told me was that we can never give up. We have to be vigilant. You have to be rigorous, because things just creep back in. It was a real reminder to me. I've never forgotten that, because I was kind of going, oh my God, you know, I was kind of proud of what we had done. I was thinking, yeah, good. And then I realized, well, we're back where we were. We weren't quite back where we were. So I guess to me, fixing pay gaps is a really important topic. So if you wanted to think about, you know, the middle level of your career, and there's all these things that might drag you out of tech, one thing that should absolutely be normalized for all of us is that there is no gap, because you're not even starting from a level playing field. And if we as influential people in our organizations can eliminate that, we absolutely should. And then we actually need to check it again year in, year out. But it actually, I guess what I'm really saying here is the reminder is that even though we're taking small steps and large steps, keep going and, you know, keep being really vigilant, because it's a life's work. You know, that's my view. From the time I was in my 30s, and I'm not in my 30s anymore, as some of my panelists clearly are, I can remember thinking, this is not a topic that I need to be bothered with. And actually, I'm from New Zealand, and New Zealand is far more gender, you know, has far more gender equality. Has had, you know, prime ministers that, you know, women, you know, the CEOs of the largest corporates in New Zealand have been women, and so forth. So, you know, I think I, you know, had a lot of the early part of my life living there, and also working, and, you know, worked in Australia, and, you know, zigzagged across the Tasman a lot. And I remember, you know, sort of, I don't know when it was in my sort of 30s, I kind of woke up and I thought, well, actually, it's not about everybody else doing this. I can't rely on all the policies of the organization. I can't blame everybody else. You know, I've got a role to play. And so, you know, I've had that role over time. But I suppose my takeaway here, Carla, is that, you know, it's a life's work, and we've all got a role to play in it.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Thank you. And I totally concur with that 100%. I think anybody who's a bystander in the process is really not contributing to the outcome. Valencia, what are your, you know, what would your takeaways be there?
Yes, thanks, Carla. So I was dying to explain my reaction earlier.
Go ahead, now's your chance.
Okay, so that means I'll take 2.
That's fine, go ahead.
Thank you. All right, so I think that the first part is, let's demystify technology. And that goes to the discussion that we had earlier, the point that you made earlier about, do women really want to be in technology? Would they rather not? And the next line would be, it's so complex. Do they really actually want to bother with such complexity over and above everything else that women have to do and that they are doing? I think it's important that we demystify technology. From my point of view, I think coming from a background where literally when you went to varsity so that you could secure a job. It was not about maximizing certain skills or talents that a child is seen to have, but it was, this is a lucrative job, and to belong to this circle in society, you have to be a nurse, a lawyer. So it was purely about securing a job. What that has done is, technology is a mystery. It's for men. It's for white men who are engineers, who know about big machines and all of that. And I think we've now come full circle, and we're at a point now where inevitably, for businesses to thrive, for economies to thrive, for people to participate meaningfully in the economy, it's important that we interact with technology. It's how we do life. It's how we learn at the moment. So I think from a workplace point of view, that goes towards giving support to women. I started off in legal. Having learned what I learned as a lawyer is, you get a set of facts, you interpret them, you interact with a certain set of facts, and you apply them to circumstances, and you get an outcome, and you apply whatever you need to. So I feel like, having come from being purely a lawyer, having worked for Eskom, which is our electricity utility, Sarah, having worked in general positions, I've had about 6 distinct jobs in legal. I've done, currently I'm looking at communications, where one is given the opportunity to interact with a subject and not see it as threatening, but it's something that is a value-adding component to your life. You actually can learn. And I would say start from probably primary school. My daughter, my baby, plays the PlayStation with her brother so well. And we're not confining her to Barbie. If it's Monster or whatever, she's ready. So there's a lot of room for learning. And I think the one thing that as corporations we should do for women is allow the opportunity to learn. There's nothing as disabling as sitting in a meeting and you have no clue what's going on and you get action items that you expected to execute. So let's allow room for asking questions. Let's allow room for saying, we're now going into cloud. Probably if you're in a meeting of 8 people, 6 out of the 8 don't really understand what cloud is, or what it means or what impact it will have in their lives. Let's promote that kind of tech learning in various environments, starting from grassroots, starting from school, at work as well. So the fact that you're sitting in marketing, you're sitting in HR, doesn't mean you cannot be in a strategy meeting where products are being developed and tech products. Because you'll find that once you start involving people, start involving women without wondering whether they'll understand or without wondering whether they have any contribution to make, that's where you'll find that you're sourcing talents, and you, by demystifying the whole thing, you're inviting people into a world where, yes, there are less people that are like them, but they feel confident to know that I see where this is going and there's probably some way for me to contribute. So, and I'm a good example, I'm a classical example. I had to start off asking, what exactly is spectrum? And today I will sit and I can lecture you on spectrum, I can write papers on, so it's something that it's part of everyday life, but it's put out there. It's not accessible to people to understand. And I think that's where we should start, educate and have the patience to teach. So there's no stupid question. When a question comes up, it's attended to, and we may just succeed. We may just have women CEOs in maybe 80% of our tech companies, which is possible, I believe. Thanks.
Well, let's hold each other to that. Let's hold each other to 80% of women in tech companies, because I think that's important. Not only that, 50% of consumers of tech are women. So why aren't they part of developing tech? It doesn't, there was a big thing, another topic at the Africa Tech Week was humanizing tech. And I don't think there's any better example of humanizing the workplace environment or engineering than women, really. So, Mashfika, what are your thoughts? What would you do? You've won an award with us before, so you have done some things. So let's tuck into you.
I think the first statement that I'd like to make is the first step to recovery is admission, correct? So nobody's going to want to be called a sexist. And in saying that, in my experience and what we've done differently, which to larger corporates and when you are in your own business, it is quite difficult to grasp the mindset of the possibility of allowing your employees to lead. And that comes from twofold. It comes from a space where there was obviously a large, allowing your employees firstly to lead is being able to deal with the sensitivities of, if you look at the space that we are in and prior, and this is something that I was facing directly, was that work-life balance with family. And when you speak to women, whether it be in this regard or in any space, finding that work-life balance, work-family balance is what kind of always seems to be the element that puts you on the back step. A more personal scenario, needing to travel. So having kids and needing to, ensure that my house and everything is sorted where they are concerned and seeing to their needs, but also knowing that I had my own goals and needing to push ahead with that Was I then limiting myself if I then went and said, sorry, I'm unable to do it? So taking the lesson of ensuring that we do not limit opportunities for women, it is that admission to be aware of the gender bias in the same way that if you think of in the last 5 years, many companies looked at wellness programs and health and awareness for diabetes, so on and so forth. Why are we not doing it by allowing and letting employees lead in these situations where if we are and take the approach of more empathetic leadership, we are able to get the most value out of that employee if we are sensitive to that situation. It does not mean that because they are not available at that specific time, they are unable to deliver. It is more the when. So if we are able to plan within all elements of industry, and again, demystifying ICT, if we are able to then give them that voice and opportunity and take heed, part of planning and strategy, by adopting the process of allowing your employees to lead. And I'm purposefully repeating myself based on the broad spectrum of people that are attending today, because I'm hoping that if you take heed from something that is on empathetic leadership, you are then ensuring that you're going to take the first step to repairing and hitting the goals on where we want to get to. Another thing that I use is Bill Gates, and I'll put the link up on 11 rules that you'll never learn in school. Nowhere is it going to be that if you are running the business, you allow your employees to lead, because they have KPIs, there's a purpose in everything else. But getting the better of them is ensuring that you are sensitive to those situations. So do we want to take 108 years to actually, apparently this is what is needed to close the gap to close the gender gap? Or are we going to make strides towards that by picking the brains of our employees?
Brilliant. I'm so glad I'm seeing some amazing comments coming through. I don't know how many of you are reading them. The last one quickly, and I've got to give a shout out to Chris. By the way, I'm a male. And he's head of talent acquisition at Wipro. And he says, I'll champion these messages all day, every day. Chris, thank you. Kudos to you. We appreciate the support and the voice. So Janita, I know you've mentioned Netstar is doing quite a lot already, but let's just unpack a little bit what you feel sort of number one priority, or what one thing could we really do in our organizations to change this sort of status quo that is currently in place around sort of gender bias of women and the lack of women in leadership in tech?
So I think, Carla, for me, the core thing that we need to embrace is inclusion and diversity, in everything that we do. It is a core value of our organization, but certainly, something that we have to embrace. I don't believe organizations have a choice. And in order, we live in South Africa, and we all come from such diverse backgrounds, whether it's cultural, we diverse in so many ways, and we have to embrace it, and we have to provide opportunities for all people. I allude so much to what Valencia says, not because I'm also a lawyer, but I really have had a similar experience. And, when she speaks about education, so much of that is true, because we really need accessible quality education. And, I think organizations can support women, once they are in the technology field, but a lot also has to do, with the way that children are brought up. We have to spark that interest in technology at an early age, and that's not just the responsibility of organizations and government and the public sector, but it also stems from us as leaders in our personal lives. They say that it takes a village to raise a child. And, a lot has to do with the community and how we encourage children. I think the struggle for quality education is also so real from a South African perspective. We look at the struggle of students, the fees must fall movement. It really is so real. And if we do not provide that accessible quality education, which I think, should be a basic right, how do we then, firstly, get women to study and then, further succeed in the field, because the opportunity wasn't there. So I think as organizations as well, we also have a duty, besides in the organization supporting the women that are there, we also have a duty to do more. There's so many initiatives out there, and one such program that NetStar supports is ProTech, which is a program for technological careers. And it's a national technological career development for disadvantaged youth to increase and improve their skills by promoting, it promotes math, science, and technology education. And that's really one of the things that organizations can do. We also support the South African Medical and Education Foundation. And, that's a national NPO that undertakes high impact community projects. So one of the things that we were recently involved in is that we donated funds to upgrade the community center. So, I think it starts before women enter the organization and earlier on in encouraging women, providing opportunities for studies, because passion is the fuel that really drives us. And where girls and little girls show passion for STEM fields, they should be encouraged all the way to pursue them. And I think this kind of nurturing environment that we create as communities, as families, as teachers, and then later on organizations from a support perspective is incredibly valuable.
Nita, honestly, thank you very much for that. I think you're doing some really amazing, incredible things at NetStar and the ProTech specifically. I'd love if you could share that and we could share it with the attendees afterwards. There is so many chats coming in the group and such great engagement. We're about an hour into it now. I want to tackle one more topic, and that's about the opportunities in Africa. And Sarah, although you're not in Africa, I think you might have a view on opportunities in tech. And I think that is really important, that we are here to inspire the next generation or future leaders or current leaders, to be fair. But there's a comment here from Rela Bungile. And I like this. It's greetings, everyone. Just a point I'd like to make is young Africans and women in particular don't relate to restrictions or inequalities in tech because we aren't aware. That's not a bad thing. Let's change our narrative by celebrating women currently in tech and telling their stories of triumph in order to attract women. No one wants to be a part of a struggle, especially not our young African women. So thank you for that. And I really think that's a very important point to make and very much the reason why we are here. There is a poll that we've put out. I think about 60% of the people have filled it in. We'd love if you could all fill it in because I'd love to see and sort of announce what those results are. So I'm going to get to our last topic of the opportunities in Africa for tech and just discuss a little bit about that. And after that, you're welcome to put your questions in the chat, or there is actually a Q&A button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. And we can then queue the Q&As as we go, as opposed to putting them in the chats, because then I've got to scroll all the way up and down. But not a bad thing if I have to. It would just be better if you could. So Sarah, I mean, coming from Australia and kind of the place that you're in, you're not just really isolated to Australia. I mean, you're connected with India, UK, all over the world. So it'd be interesting to hear your view from where you're sitting and where you're seeing opportunities for women in tech that you could share with us today.
Yeah, we actually, I'll just give an Australian story from last week. I think we had the federal budget come out, and there was this big deal made of the tech boom that's going to happen in Australia over the next 5 years. And I think a lot of that is driven through digital acceleration, and 156,000 new jobs which is 25% of all new jobs are going to be in tech. So I think that, we're probably very representative of the rest of the world. If you went to some places like India, it's probably more so. But if you went to many, many other nations, I think you'd find it would be very similar to that. It made me actually think about, my son's starting university this year and he's doing commerce and law. And I'm kind of thinking, maybe he needs to add a little bit of IT or computer science in there. So I think there is enormous opportunity. It is around digital. I actually think the language of digital and the opportunity around digital transformation, digital business, whatever you want to call that, is really important to future opportunities, because digital isn't just tech. It's around the design side of it. It's got creative in it. It's got data. Cloud was mentioned before. I'm still working that out. But, so tech isn't, digital isn't just tech. And I think if we think more about that, because that's really the change that's coming about. And then it really broadens the aperture. You don't have to actually know how to code, which is fortunate because I don't. But you do have to understand how the capabilities around digitizing an enterprise can actually have an impact on that business and that business's customers or clients or patients or whatever the end user, let's say, is, it whatever the human is that is benefiting from the organisation, services and products. So, I think there's enormous opportunity for people to go into that broader digital environment. And so that means that instead of thinking, hey, I'm not attracted to computer science, or I don't want to get into tech, but I do want to do work, even, media, as you were talking about, where you are, Carla, and, through to, what's the role of the chief marketing officer these days? Is highly digitized environment. So I would imagine most senior CMOs know a lot about technology and know about the importance of digital marketing, digital media, and so forth. So I think it's a huge opportunity. It's where I think governments will invest, will help people reskill. If I think of our current situation in Australia, we've got an enormous war for talent. Our borders are closed. The government is saying people cannot come here easily for at least a year. So we won't be getting the normal influx of talent. So if I was thinking, there's probably never a better time in some of our countries to reskill or put our hand up for a job that perhaps, we might not think we've got, 190 and 80 or 70% fit for, but that we actually may be quite well suited. Like everybody on this panel did not start off, I don't think, studying tech.
Yeah, that was quite apparent, isn't it? I mean, most of your backgrounds are otherwise. So, women in digital, I think you're on the money there. And from my perspective, like you said, in media, I saw a post the other day on LinkedIn that digital marketing has become one of the most in-demand jobs of yep. 2021. And I can tell you there is a massive, from my perspective, massive shortage of those skills. And what we're having to do is bring people on who can show potential to want to take those skills on and teach and allow them an environment to be self-taught. And not only that, but as a leader myself, I have never been in such a open learning environment, from our CEO right the way down to an intern or any part of the organization, is really learning, especially through sort of lockdown and pivoting entirely to virtual. So I can tell you from that perspective, just to add to what you're saying, Sarah, definitely a massive opportunity in tech is more digital. Yeah. So I totally agree with you there. Valencia, what are your thoughts?
I completely agree. I think we are currently living in a world where we cannot live without technology. It's inevitable that we all have to be, in one way or the other, tech savvy. And I think in terms of what we should be doing for employment and generally for women and for our communities and maybe our next generations as well, is the pandemic. The current pandemic is a crisis that we should not waste. You know, when they say you must not let a crisis go to waste, this is a classical one, because what COVID has done is it was suddenly there. It was suddenly part of our lives. It forced businesses to upscale on their uptake on digital technologies. There's a book by Godfrey Moore, and he talks about technology adoption life cycle. It's around the shifting of the chasm, where you have on the one hand early adopters, and I think our banking systems and our financial services would be in that league, who as soon as technology comes through, they leverage it, they take it up and they run with it. And then you have your laggers who just don't take it up until everyone is sure that this thing works and this is how it works and there's value to it. I think the pandemic has scraped all of that. It's just said to everyone has to shift to the one side. So we've had to adapt, and there's no going back. I think we've now at a point where we just have to move forward. I work for, as I said, we've just rebranded to Liquid Intelligent Technologies. We're an international company. And what I've seen is that what is happening internationally is what has been happening in our shores, but we had not been taking it up as we should have. And our mission is to not leave any African behind. So we're creating a digital economy and transforming Africa such that no one is left behind. And I think the time is right. And there are massive opportunities for that. We should start with the basics, our education systems. And I think our government as well, and some of our telcos generally, are leveraging this crisis as well in terms of providing devices. You know, the proliferation of devices means that everyone has some sort of device to be able to participate in the economy and do what, and go with the flow in terms of what everyone is doing. Cloud services, small businesses, small to medium enterprises can now buy something like an office in the box. Rather than having to upscale to a big magnitude, there are various innovations that can be brought through, especially at this time where we really have to do it and we can advance our economy. So I think let's grab the opportunity by its horns, but also let's have that reflected in our businesses as well. And let's use that to reflect the gender divisions in our society as well. So it mustn't be, it's just for men, it's just for women. It can be for the girl child. Start at our primary schools. We, as telcos, have been providing virtual classrooms, for example. There's a big drive driven from the government. Say some of the spectrum that was allocated to telecommunications companies should actually be used to promote education. Certain sites, education sites, health sites should be E-rated, and all of that is available. People must just know about it. So we need to talk about it. We need to inform people about it. We need to work with small businesses to make sure that no one is left behind, basically, practically, like I said. We must just go with the technology. There's massive opportunities. There was this innovation in agriculture where I think it was aerobiotics that introduced drones in farming. That is an innovation that not only shifted unknown boundaries in terms of farming, but also creating new jobs. So there has to be someone who sits and actually analyzes the information that gets drawn from the drones. But it's an opportunity that it shows that with creativity and with understanding what we're dealing with, there's a lot of room for impacting not only our economies, but businesses, small and large businesses, and scaling that down to individuals in the workplace, to our kids who are still at schools, and therefore building a bigger and better digital future for everyone. And I think Africa is going in that direction, and we should not let this opportunity slide. I think it's our responsibility.
I agree. And yeah, the agriculture sector, from what I've seen, is a massive opportunity that is underserviced and under-focused. So, Mushfiqah, what are your thoughts on Africa? I know you were quite excited to have some discussions around this topic.
Yeah, I mean, I think it always helps to be on a panel like this that has such vast insight, and you're able to share it. So, Sarah, Valencia, I'm not too sure about on your side, but I'm also going to say I'm a woman in tech and I do not code. That's the first thing that I'm going to say. I am solution driven. I focus within the solution architectural space, more within analysis, and just bringing it closer to home around transformation. The three key elements on digital transformation and full adoption are in elements of technology specifically. Why? You get leaders who say what? It is extremely important if you look at the situation that we are currently in. Forced to change with mobile and digital marketing. Gone are the 5-year plans, but what they're needing it for is for customer to meet customer demands, right? This is how it boosts the economy, and more so, agriculture is one of the most driving forces within Africa, where we know that there is opportunity. Then secondly, elements of process. So within technology, keyword that is always used, whether it be attached to cloud or anything else, and I'm not going to go into the buzzwords of technology, but key to assess and provide value is integration. What I'm putting out from an African perspective is more collaboration. And I've used this before, but getting together on a platform where you are able to then, with sound mind, see opportunity of an important problem that can be sorted out right now. The right to education and what's actually happening in Africa. There are smaller elements where they are unable, they don't have Wi-Fi connection. Right? So being in a male-dominated industry, as we say, within technology, I put myself into an even greater space of Aspire's key focus. And one of the things that we are passionate about, and our client base is actually within transport. So transport and engineering. If you look at things on growth strategies, Morocco, Algeria, Libya, Mozambique, infrastructure reports that are available showing where there is a lack or need of skill, and skill within communication. That's why it's ICT. I mean, communication is a skill that is needed within technology. So why are we not harnessing that? Why are we not instilling a bit more confidence? And these are elements that I really am passionate about it, as you can see, that I like leaders to be aware of. And if you are doing things within the community, that this becomes a focus point. And then lastly would be culture. So it's the largest hurdle for companies to address culture. So offering support, and I use this word often, empathetic leadership and transformation. To achieve this completely, you need all elements of that. So a bit of what we've done at Aspire is we have launched the Aspire Academy. And this is to ensure that we're not just looking at coding. We're looking at the foundation of database design, understanding and opening the minds of learners from grade 11 who are willing to come onto the program, bring on something that they are passionate about, and actually look at complete design of what their thought process is. We had one student that was interested in fashion, and she was able to then look at it from a supply and demand perspective and how she would formulate the outcome of that. So again, Uganda and Egypt, power reports are available. Valencia, this is very much in your space. Consumer electronics. Janita, on your side from Netstar and what can be done around data and analytics. We need to collaborate on these methods or opportunities that exist So we are enabling more education and facilitating awareness of what exists across industry.
Thank you, Mushfiqah. Very passionate, and it comes across. No, it's important to have passion, right? I mean,
100%.
And that's how we're going to get things done. So, Janita, what are your thoughts?
Thanks, Carla. So, I have to agree with Mushfiqah. Technology plays such a critical role in society. And when you look at national challenges and, like the vaccine rollout, the energy crisis that we're experiencing in South Africa, so as a country, as a continent, I think so many of our challenges could benefit from innovative technology solutions. If anything that the pandemic has, taught us is that change is inevitable, and technology has really been the enabler for our lives to go on, and insofar as normal can be normal during this pandemic time. So again, though, I think any form of education is a key to alleviating poverty. And, the real need as well is to educate our people, to educate our women to be equipped for the future. So that is really such an important and critical factor for the people of South Africa and the continent of Africa. The other thing is that, we have really advanced technology, but as Mushfiqah mentioned, some people do not have access to Wi-Fi. We live in a country where data is one of the most expensive in the world, really. So data is so expensive in South Africa. How do we get technology to everybody, or access to technology to everybody? I really think that's a key issue. And if you look at, digital transformation during this pandemic, it really has assisted us in so many ways. You look at the vaccine rollout and the registration, everything is digital. We have this COVID app, which tells you, if you were near someone who was infected, and all of these things assist in actually curbing the risk of spreading the disease. Online shopping, we can have groceries delivered in 60 minutes, and that's really great. But at the same time, it's really playing such a crucial and critical role, because some people can't do online shopping and they have to go to the shops and the stores. But those who are not going, you are actually limiting the number of people, and that in a way, again, curbing the infection. Virtual platforms are these, I think, such as these, just bears testament to the advancement and the acceleration of the digital world during this pandemic. So, I really think that there is no choice but to embrace it. It's really made such a significant difference in our lives. But access to technology for all is still a real problem. And as leaders, as organizations, as government, it's really something that we need to look at and resolve. So I think that, that's really my views on this issue.
Thank you, Janita. And I think education and access is very important. Again, it was very much highlighted during my conversation with the UN Undersecretary. And I think I would share that, and I'll get one of the team members to share that podcast on there, because there are a lot of initiatives that the UN are driving that people could get involved in. And not only that, but inspired to take in on their personal businesses or personal ability to make some sort of change within the infrastructure of the country, the continent, etc. So we're running very, very over time, and this tends to happen when you put 5 women together in a panel talking about such things. So I'm going to ask if the panelists are happy to take questions, that they can just leave their details behind. I think Mushfika and Valencia alluded to being happy to take discussions on afterwards. Thank you very much for that offer. So if that's the case, then by all means, if you've got questions, please reach out to them. In the sense of just, we've got some interesting facts coming from the poll. Do you feel like tech space in XA is more inclusive of women today? It's a positive sentiment of more than 60% saying, slightly we're getting there. And what should established tech companies do to support women in tech? 40% are saying promote more women in leadership, which I think is kind of based on the discussion that we're having today. Some of the biggest barriers in tech to getting promoted: gender bias at 43%. And do you think remote work has had a positive impact on women in tech? From everything I've read, I feel it's kind of said the opposite, but to hear it from the individuals themselves at 89% saying yes, I think that's fantastic and something we should really look into and start telling those stories. What most interests you? There was the resounding artificial intelligence, AI. I'm not sure if that's because people are scared of losing jobs to AI, or if there's a genuine interest in it. I think we had some of these discussions as well at the beginning of the month. Have you ever experienced gender discrimination in the workplace? 71% sadly said yes to that, which is something we really need to start taking and tackling. Are you drawn to organizations that speak openly about diversity? 96% say yes. So for you ladies who are advocating that and working on that, well, look, you're going to get the best talents right there. There was a question in there, and I would like to address it, and we do have it very often, is the issue of around sort of lack of funding. That is kind of a session on its own, and we've had plenty of those for you who want to go and look back. We did discuss access to funding and access to markets for women in Africa. I would advise that you go onto the Top Women website and just go and see some of the previous masterclasses. We spoke a lot about that. So I'm just going to ask, in wrapping up to everybody, what your sort of closing thoughts are, and you've got some of the poll results there. I don't know if you find those interesting or not, but so just a couple of minutes each, so we don't go over time. What are your kind of closing thoughts going forward there, Sarah?
I saw a question somewhere in here around imposter syndrome, and that actually hasn't come up at all. Maybe not everybody knows what that is. I just thought maybe I don't have high quality closing comments. I'll just make a comment on imposter syndrome. This is where we all, from time to time, or some people all the time, think that the role that they're in is not really deserved, and they think, well, how did I ever get here? Am I a bit of a phony? Should I really, am I deserving, of this? And I think we all have self-doubt. Actually, all humans do, but I think women in particular. Now, this is one where I go right back to the beginning when I said, it's great if we're surrounded by like-minded people. We look for people that we can look up to or have as peers where we've got something in common. And I think around imposter syndrome, there's nothing better than women lifting other women up. And now that it could be people who are not as senior as you. Make sure you don't pull the ladder up. Make sure you support people and bring them through. Sometimes women can be tough on other women, but also look for people who you look up to too, role models and peers. And I think we have to get over our sort of that mind, the way our minds work, and grow in confidence. And even if we feel that we might be imposters, I certainly have many times, grit your teeth, be confident, but also be authentic, because it's absolutely okay to say sometimes that, you probably don't want to say that you don't quite have the skills. You wouldn't lead with that, but it's okay, to say you're nervous, or maybe you haven't, sort of done whatever it is quite in terms of, what a new role's asking. you to do, but it's about the confidence that you have to step into that. So I think that area is one that we should all, you know, really have awareness of for ourselves, but also very much for others.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm gonna mix it up a little bit. I'm gonna skip to Janita, so she's not the last one. She's at the tail end of all the commentary. Janita, give us your sort of summary, leaving thoughts.
Thanks, Carla. You know, I think it's been an incredible opportunity, and I've learned so much. And, you know, really, I think my message is to, you know, to all women and to all people is to just believe in yourself, to put your best foot forward. And, you know, sometimes you work towards significance rather than success. And at the end of the day, you succeed. So my parting shot, you know, to the audience and especially to all the women out there is one of my favorite quotes from the Honorable Nelson Mandela, who fought and sacrificed for both human and women rights. And, you know, he said, "It always seems impossible until it's done." Thank you.
Thank you for that. I love one of my favorite quotes as well. Mashvika, let's hear it from you.
Yes, I'm a believer in creative leadership. So for me, it would be some takeaway thoughts to everyone. And first and foremost, it is to ensure that you keep the mind challenged. So with assignments and when it comes to employees and women in your space, and I can speak as a woman saying what we need and what we require is to learn and practice new skills. It's kind of why we sit on that seesaw of thinking we're going to miss out on certain skills within technology, but know that understanding your credibility and expanding on that and being given that challenge also aids by powering a woman in technology. Secondly, I use collaboration. I use the word connect. I'm going to say it again. Connecting. So with potential mentors, with sponsors, and people who would provide you with feedback and support. This being positive and negative, because it becomes a way for you to look at yourself and also once more be true to your worth. Thirdly, invest by offering development opportunities. And I mean, from a NetStar perspective, you spoke a lot about that, and opportunities to build leadership, and also competencies that are required. So this once more, going into that space where if you have a gap and you feel the time is now, mix it up a bit, allow your employees to lead with what they are able to do to ensure maximum value. So if it's within your organization that has a program in place, it's to enhance it with those 3 softer elements or enable it for yourself within your business. So pioneering leadership and training for women, there are only, I'd say 3 keywords: equity, diversity, and inclusion. So having that voice, connecting, investing, and challenging. That would be my parting words.
Stunning. Thank you, Mashvika, for that. And lastly, but not least, Valencia, who I insulted the tech sector earlier, but I was just trying to throw a spanner in the works.
Thanks, Carla. Thanks. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. It was such a pleasure. I've learned a lot as well. We've had good interactions, and I'm looking forward to further engagements. My final thoughts. Imposter syndrome, like Sarah said, is real. It's like a disease, and it's self-doubt. It manifests in self-doubt. And when, as Mashvika was talking, inclusion, and Janita was saying, teaching people, I think let's take a leap of faith as leadership in business and technology. Let's take a leap of faith in women. Let's embrace women. Let our default position be not to question whether someone can or cannot do something, but let's embrace learning. Let's embrace inclusivity. There's a lot that's going on in technology, and there's a lot that we can leverage. I would invite everyone that's tuned in to seek out information. There's a lot that's happening, both at an individual level and at the business level, especially as well for small business. There's a lot of initiatives and offerings that are there in technology to advance our businesses. Let's do that in an all-inclusive way. let's push our women, let's promote women and believe in them. Because the reality is, as I said, everyone can make some meaningful contribution, and let's not lose that out of just societal norms that we have wrongfully embraced and are still holding on to. We all can make a difference, I believe. Thank you.
Valencia, thank you. Yeah, I love that we all can, and you really have been upholding that principle today. So everybody, thank you so much. I've had an absolute blast. I think I have made notes and endless notes on all the lessons that you've kind of imparted with us today. And I think what I wouldn't want to do is kind of discard those. So we will be doing an article on it that will really summarize those things. Ladies, you've put some amazing, and not just the panelists, but people in the audience have put some amazing resources down and some ideas and comments. Thank you, absolutely thank you for that. They've been really powerful and inspirational. I think it's my sister-in-law, Cornette Fletcher, who's been a great supporter, asking about mentorship, and she's in the UK, but she's from South Africa. And I just want to say, somewhere in the chat there, we have got an exclusive Facebook Top Women group where people who are part of our masterclasses and part of our sessions and our newsletters will have access to that. And the idea of that is that we are sharing thoughts and ideas with one another, that we can suggest mentors wherever you are in the world. I know WIPRO's got representation from all over the place today participating, which is phenomenal. So, like you say, take advantage of a crisis, or don't let a crisis go to waste. I think in this instance, we are connecting with one another, and this is a great opportunity to do that. I've seen on a lot of our polls previously, networking has been one of the biggest desires or needs in these times, and staying in touch. So get on that Facebook group, talk to one another. Don't let the conversation stop over 90 minutes and be discarded. And keep up to date with what we're doing. There is so many more beautiful and inspirational women and men out there supporting these diversity and inclusivity initiatives. So like Mushfiqah said, let's connect, let's get together and collaborate and represent. Sarah, I appreciate you coming all the way from Australia. I don't know what time it is over there. It's burning the midnight oil.
No, it's wine time. It's 8:30.
Oh, you're all right. That's my bedtime. I never would have done this.
Thanks so much, Carla. It's been fabulous. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Look, to all of you, I hope we connect again. And I appreciate your time and effort and all your wisdom and passion and soul that you've left today. Thank you very much. And I'm sad to say goodbye, but it's time to go.
Good night.
Thank you so much.
Ciao. Have a